310-2100. But first, more about budget cuts. News nugget. Mick Mulvaney, White House budget director, says President Trump is calling for significant cuts to the EPA.
You can expect reductions in the EPA that don't line up with the president's view on things like global warming and alternative energies.
Now, here's what some EPA employees are doing. They're resisting. They're pushing back. They're going to have an EPA's resist rally. Why? Because they don't agree with the president. They want to protest with the help of the Sierra Club. This is what's wrong with the swamp. The swamp thinks they run things. J to B, what if the management of this company decided to do something that you didn't like? Are you going to have a resist rally, or are you going to go along with it or leave?
Well, depending on what it is, I'll probably go along with it. But now my resistance, I would probably do like they're doing at the EPA and using those chat systems that are encrypted, and so I can piss and moan under my breath, particularly to the media, and nobody knowing it was my big mouth.
You know, what gets me is not that they don't have a right to voice their opinions. And every company that I have been affiliated with, I made it clear that everybody in the company could voice their opinions. However, if you don't bring me logical arguments as to why we should do it your way, we're going to do it my way. That's what I'm talking about. And it appears as if some of these agencies, they aren't interested in providing a logical argument as to why they ought to do it the way they've been doing it. They just want to resist it because Donald Trump wants to do it a different way. It doesn't work that way. That was the point that I was trying to make. It doesn't work that way.
No one's putting a gun to their head saying you have to work for the EPA. If you don't like it, leave.
Exactly. Go somewhere else. Now, good leaders try to create an environment where you want to stay. I happen to think that that's the type of organization we work for. I happen to think that that's the type of organization that I have run throughout my career, where people didn't want to leave. But if they don't like the direction or the leadership, leave. But see, that's how the bureaucratic mindset is upside down. So the EPA is going to experience some significant cuts. Here's another big cut that they're going to experience up there. They're looking at cutting the funding for the United Nations. Dan wrote a commentary about that you can read all of the details. Now, it may not be a lot of money in the big scheme of things, but it's a lot of money. See, the U.S. spends roughly $10 billion annually on the United Nations. And the Trump administration is basically putting the UN on notice. We might cut it 50%. Let's cut it by 50%. What will that do? It will send a strong signal to the United Nations that the United States is not going to be slapped around anymore. That's really the bottom line. Several years ago, I met with former Ambassador John Bolton, and we were talking about this. I said, does the United States have any leverage? He said, yes. I said, what? He said, funding. He said, if we had a leader with the courage to cut the funding in places that it could be cut, then we would be able to exercise our will more than the will of all of these other nations that really don't care about the will of the United States. That's what that's all about, folks. And quite frankly, I'm happy to see it. Other areas that are going to be put to the knife, budget-wise, the president and his budget director talked about, have to do with going into each and every agency and identifying things or rules or programs that are not helping the American people and put a knife to them. That's called leadership. Just like Secretary Price said when we played that soundbite, there are hundreds of rules that were written by HHS. that some need to be undone. And that's exactly what they're going to do. That's how you cut the budget, folks. You don't just indiscriminately accept everything as it ought to be there. You go through and figure out the things that need to go. I've shared this story before, Shana B, about when I first went to Godfathers. Godfathers was headed for bankruptcy. And so I called in all of my vice presidents when I was president of Godfathers, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. We're going bankrupt, and we are not going to be able to get sales turned around, a new marketing program fast enough. So for the upcoming budget cycle, I need everybody to cut their budgets by 15%. Get back to me in 3 days. Every vice president came back to me in 3 days with a revised, lean to the bone budget. And I said, okay, except for one. My marketing director said it's impossible to do. I said, what do you mean it's impossible to do? Can't do it. Got to keep the amount of money that we got. I hate to say it, but, it wasn't personal. I had to take him to breakfast, Shana B. You know what that means, right? I took him to breakfast and redirected his career, hired me a new marketing director who put together the budget that I asked for, and guess what? We survived, and that gave us time to turn the company around with a new marketing program, some new products, sales started to take off, and in 14 months the company was turned around. That's what leaders do, provide direction as to what we have to do, but make the organization and the people in it part of the solution. Not holding a resist rally. No. How about hold a help achieve the objectives rally? 877-310-2100. This is Rapid Fire.
How many callers? How much information can Herman squeeze into the next 20 minutes? Watch him go, Kimosabi. This is Rapid Fire every day with Herman Cain.
Hello, Julia. You're on Rapid Fire. You've got a minute. What's on your mind?
Hi, Herman. I just want to say the Obamacare health care plan was supposed to be great for everybody, but the only people that didn't have to go under it was Congress.
Yes.
In any new health care plan, they need to be included in it, too.
Yes.
With no exception. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much. I have not heard anyone answer that specific question, but I have talked to many Republicans who agree with exactly what you're saying. The Democrats, pull some trickery in order for them not to have to live under Obamacare. And I don't know all of the details at this point, but you're right. All of the Republicans that I have talked to, I've talked to several senators, I've talked to some congressmen, they are also under the assumption that whatever they pass for the people is what they will also live with, and I absolutely agree with, and I think that also represents part of that positive tone from the top. Thanks, Julia. Tim, you've got a minute on Rapid Fire.
Yes, Mr. Cain. I was wondering if you could give an explanation as to why the media is so left-leaning and biased. Where do they benefit from supporting what is now obviously a minority instead of the majority of what people are thinking? With our new president elected, it's obvious that, it's not the majority of the country that's liberal. So where do they benefit from that?
They are upset, Tim, because they've lost their power of persuasion. I recall back in 2015, 16, when this race was getting underway. Back in 2015, I wrote a piece about how the media wants to shape the perception of the candidates. This was during the primary. That's how they exercise their control. They wanted to shape the perception of the candidates, which is 50% of a candidate getting elected. It's 50% perception and 50% substance. They've lost their power of persuasion because they've been busted. They've been thrown under the bus. They are still fighting to regain that power of persuasion, even though most of the American people have seen their hypocrisy. So their only benefit of continuing to fight this president and to fight this administration is so they can, go, aha, we brought him down like we've always done. They either like to build you up or bring you down. And if you happen to be a Republican administration, a Republican president, they want to try to bring you down. That's what they do. And that's why they're pushing back so hard. Now, that being said, they're not succeeding. They're not succeeding for several reasons. One, most Americans have awakened to their hypocrisy. Secondly, he still uses Twitter. Some people are critical of certain things he puts on Twitter and certain things that he doesn't put on Twitter. But that gives him direct access to 50 million people, and that's why the liberal media wants him to stop. They don't want him having direct access. They want to continue their power of persuasion. Great question, Tim. Chris, you've got a minute on rapid fire.
Hello, Mr. Cain.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I got a question and I got a suggestion for you.
Okay.
The question is, why do the Democrats keep on with their little antics if people are just ignoring it? And my second thing is, if you ever give an audio clip of someone being hypocritical, you ought to start a new segment called Hypocrisy Alert.
Yes. That's a good idea. Hypocrisy alert. That is a great idea. What was the one we did last week, Shana B? It was called
Propaganda.
Propaganda alert. Yes. So propaganda alert. That's right. Hypocrisy alert. That's a good suggestion. Now, here's why the liberals and the Democrats continue their antics. Because the liberal media outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, sometimes Headline News, they still have a pulse of a rating. Okay? It's not a strong heartbeat. They still have a pulse. And they really believe if they continue their antics and they continue their hypocrisy and they continue their propaganda, that people are going to get used to it and their ratings are going to go back up. The best one that illustrates this is how Rachel Maddow on MSNBC practically hyperventilated when she thought she had a gotcha moment for Donald Trump.
What we have are these 2 pages, front and back, from the same 1040 form that you might have filled out when you file your taxes.
And it turns out that he paid $38 million in taxes on $150 million worth of income. And their whole take on it was, first of all, we got 2 pages of his tax return. And then he didn't pay enough in taxes. He paid a higher percentage than Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, and Warren Buffett. They think a lot of people see that as a big blockbuster story when in fact it's a big fat thud. You're listening to the Herman Cain Show.
Credible, experienced, engaging. Herman Cain.
He keeps it real.
He gives it to you as it is.
Daily solutions for a better America.
Jeff's question looks like a good one for this next short segment.
Okay. Like, he's got good insurance through his company.
Yeah.
So he wants to know, if it'll affect him or even in a positive way, if maybe premiums will go down even more.
I can answer that.
Cool. Hey, Jeff. He's going to take your call. Can you hear me? This is Ashley. I'm the woman you just talked to. Jeff, you're an idiot. Hello? Jeff just hung up on himself. Maybe he'll call back.
Augusta and Columbus, Georgia, are among the saddest in the nation.
What was your question?
This is the Herman Cain Show. Please hold. All right, 2 things. Bilateral, you have a chance. And were you going to pull something for Scott Slade? Because I could if you want.
I got it handled. DCS today. I think I just called it bye.
And you don't have to send it to Jay because he's out.
I'm gonna take this.
No, they can stay for this next segment. What happened to Jeff?
Thanks for holding. What's your first name?
He hung up on himself.
Hey, Alan, what state are you in?
Well, I'm going to answer his question anyway.
Sometimes problems fix themselves.
I'm going to say, Jeff, wake up!
What if that's the same guy who had his phone backwards?
I don't know. But it's a great question. Shane B, was last Friday a payday for us, or is this coming Friday a payday?
Tomorrow is.
Okay. For you streamers, yeah, I do have to watch those things also. I have bills to pay. Nope, that's a great question to round out the healthcare discussion.
Do you see the way I typed it?
I do. I like it. I didn't get to the Federal Reserve. Ashley,
What?
maybe the Federal Reserve changing interest rates would be a good GPS topic in a broader sense, and talk about how that impacts interest rates, loans, the business community, etc.
Okay.
Now, but USA Today says, look how it affects buying homes, those evil people.
It's not having an effect yet.
They're all evil.
That's a good idea. If you could dig up that article, send it to me, because I'll use that as part of the GPS discussion. They're trying to scare people again. That's all.
Yeah, it's in the news. Yeah.
That's all they do. 365 days a year, Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff truly hung up on himself. Like, literally couldn't figure out his phone. Called me, sir, and hung up on himself. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Jarrett.
You're welcome.
I got it. You sent it to Lisa. Perfect. Ooh.
All right, anytime.
Welcome back to the Herman Cain Show. Thank you for joining us today. We've been wrapping up the discussion about the Republican health care plan, American Health Care Act. And Jeff had a question that was posted on my screen that I want to answer. It's a great question. And he wanted to know whether the American Health Care Act will help lower current employer-sponsored insurance premiums. The answer is possibly, and here's why. If you have health insurance through your company, you're part of 70% of the people who have health insurance through their company. That's the good news. The other good news is most of the companies, when Obamacare was shoved down our throats, they renegotiated their health insurance carrier with their health insurance carrier to try to minimize the impact on employees. I know that happened with the company that we're affiliated with. And so they tried to balance the company paying a little bit more, the employees paying a little bit more because the cost did go up. And so for some companies, the impact on employees was minimal. Some smaller companies could no longer afford it. But if you have good health insurance now, and the rates didn't change a whole lot after Obamacare was introduced, the Republican plan will most likely lead to your company being able to either not increase your premiums or hopefully eventually lower them because more insurance carriers will have more flexibility to negotiate. So it's all good news. May not happen overnight, but it could happen. Don't forget HermanCain.com, where you just might learn something. Off.